Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, am I really living the life I was meant to? Welcome to Female Fluence, where we stop waiting for permission and start remembering our power. I am Pearl Mashur, a mom, educator, and a women's empowerment coach. And this is a space for honest conversations about growth, purpose, and becoming who you truly are. Here, we wake up to ourselves. We release the guilt, reclaim our confidence, and rise with grace, truth, and a little bit of fire. If something in you is whispering, there's more, take the self-reflection quiz at femalefluence.com and see where you are in your journey. Because you're not here to play small, you're here to rise fully. Today, we're cutting through one of the beauty industry's loudest and most confusing conversations, skincare. We have seen it, the endless trends, the 12-step routines, the serums, the acids, the overnight miracles that TikTok swears will change your skin forever. Skincare has become one of the most viral topics online, ranking up hundreds of millions of views and billions in sales. And yet, the more products we're told we need, the more overwhelmed and disconnected women feel from their own skin. Here's the truth. Your skin is not a trend. It's not a marketing campaign. It's the largest organ you have. Intelligent, expressive, always revealing beneath the surface. But the industry doesn't want to talk about that because simple routines don't sell. Consistency does. Understanding your skin as a living, breathing organ does. And that's precisely why I brought on today's guest, Dr. Mimi, who's here to bring the science back into the conversation, to peel back the layers of what's actually worth your time and money. What's just not just what's clever packaging, but how to care for your skin in a way that's healthy, sustainable, and rooted in truth, not just the hype. If you've ever wondered how much of skincare is actually science and how much is sales, then this episode is for you. So let's jump in. Dr. Mimi Vega is a respected chemist, public speaker, and a pioneering figure in skin microbiome studies. She's on a mission to share the truth about healthy skin and simplified routines. Drawing on 30 years of trial and discovery and her daughter's skincare struggles, she realized that the traditional multi-step approach simply doesn't add up. This realization sparked a revolutionary idea that finally bridged the gap between skincare and scientific understanding, the one human skin approach to skin health. Dr. Mimi, welcome to Female Fluence. I'm actually really excited to have this conversation because I really feel like it's needed. I have two daughters of my own, and one's 18, one's 20, and the skincare, and then they see things and they want to order stuff on TikTok Shop, and I cringe. I'm like, who's backing these things up? How do you know this is going to work just based on some routine that you've seen by some influencer online? So welcome.
Thank you. I'm very excited too. I think you raise excellent points and questions, and yeah, very much looking forward to uncover a few myths and debunk others.
Definitely. So let's dive in. First, tell us what first pulled you into the world of skincare and the chemistry behind it. Where did that curiosity begin within you?
53 years ago. It's a
Okay.
life journey.
So it's
Well,
a
probably.
passion, a
Yeah,
mission.
it is. I was not a bit less than that, but as a child, even I grew up in nature and was very curious as to how nature, plants connected with us, right? I did experiments on myself very, very young. And as a teenager later on, I I was curious also to understand how my skin worked because this is, yes, the largest organ, but particularly for a teenager, is the one that you show to everybody, right? Is this unique organ that is outside, right? Is your first face, basically. And I had acne issues, the same that my daughter has had in her teens. She's slowly getting out of them, but I had them as a teen too, and I was part of the chemistry club. I actually became a chemist because of it, because I really wanted to solve this problem. I was very active, and I really thought, like there was a way to care for the skin that was simple, because even then we had offers or solutions that were not quite adapted to the skin, because I ended up having my skin very red for most of my teenage years,
Hmm.
either because of breakouts, inflammation, or because I was using treatment that was super harsh. And I ended up doing a PhD in biotechnology using microorganisms to develop something that made sense. But at the time, I felt there was something we did not understand, something was missing. And honestly, I felt a bit inexperienced to be the one taking this on, thinking, well, the big labs will develop something that makes sense at some point, right? And I
Right.
went on my merry way in, like exploring other spaces. My skin had calmed a bit. I was still looking for that simplified routine, and I've looked for a long time, but I had other issues because, we all want to care for our skin, but we also want to, live full and happy lives and not worry too much
Yeah.
about this skin, right? And at the same time, my mother had been diagnosed with leukemia. And because I really want to understand what was going on, well, I dived into the world of oncology. And so this is how it evolved, right? It's a long answer to a simple question. Where does this passion come from? It came from different experiences throughout my life. And then from the oncology, I went into discovering prevention, how to work outside of the silos of the different organs, because we often look at an organ a certain way, but everything is kind of connected. And how does the skin connect with the rest, and especially with our lifestyle? And is there anything we can do to influence our skin? And is
Hmm.
there any signs, any tips we can get from our skin that will direct our overall well-being? So the oncology experience, I ended up working more or less like 20 years in oncology on different projects, but allowed me really to connect many, many dots. And at a point where I was working with the whole portfolio at the biotech where I was, my son was diagnosed also with a brain tumor, and he's doing super well. It's
Oh, I'm glad
like
to hear that. I'm so sorry about that. Wow.
it was difficult at the time. I had to take a step back, and the company I was with, I'm so
At what
grateful.
age was he diagnosed?
He was 4. So it was an
Oh,
astrocytoma. Again, like we're very lucky in the unluck in the sense that it resolved, it was taken out, evidently. That was the big thing. But now, like he's very healthy, he's active, he's doing sports, he's good in school, he's 18 right now. So
that's great to
it's
hear.
yeah, yeah. And it really like reshifted my career because I moved into immunology. I was separated for a while from the world of oncology, but it allowed me to connect other elements. And at that
Hmm.
point, we were connecting the benefits of the gut microbiome to our overall immunity, our health, right? Because the gut is really the center of our overall health. And being so passionate for the skin, I just started shifting towards the skin microbiome and digging into, oh, what's happening there, right? And this is when I realized, oh, gee, this is what was missing. We never considered the skin microbiome when we were formulating or thinking about the skin. And my daughter was also turning a teenager at that time.
Hmm.
And she was, opening the closet. Oh, let's try to figure out something. And I was, oh, no, no, we're not going through this trial and error, like until we figure out something that makes sense. Now I know better. So basically, I went on another mission to make, like that formulation that makes sense for the skin. And yeah, so this is how it was born.
That is incredible. You seem like a very dedicated, passionate woman about this topic. And just looking at you on the screen, you have beautiful skin. So I just have to
Oh, thank
compliment you.
you.
It's you have a glow and it's beautiful. So whatever you're doing, I it seems like it's working. So now we talk about our skin, is truly our biggest organ. A lot of us, I think, are not, we don't recognize that. But what are we missing when we focus really on what's happening on our face, right? Because a lot of us as women, especially as we age or as teenagers transition through different hormonal changes and puberty, we just focus on, oh my gosh, I have a pimple or I have spots and what's happening. What deeper functions or signals should we as women pay attention to? Because the skin is not just our face, right? If you can elaborate on that, I really appreciate it.
Well, actually, it's a complete shift, a shift that for me took a few years actually to take. I think we are conditioned by by the industry to think a certain way about our skin. And we've been doing that for a long time now, probably 50 years more or less, where we look at the skin as types, right? And then we're going to say, oh, well, you have this symptom, so this is what your skin needs. But we don't do this for any other organ, right? If we have a pain in our back, we're not gonna, direct our solution only on the back, right? We're gonna look at the overall mechanics of the body. And it's the same for the heart, for any other organ, really. But our skin, because we've been slowly conditioned to look at it from a type and symptom perspective, we
Hmm.
forget how much information it tells us, it gives us. I wanted a care that was simple, that integrated everything, that I didn't have to rethink every time I had another signal. But to do that, I had to learn how to really listen to my skin, and our skin gives us information on a daily basis on our stress level, on our lacks, on the ingredients that we should eat, perhaps, and sometimes even, like just in terms of a surface, how to care for it. If we just listen to it or feel it, we know right away how to adjust to it.
Hmm.
And it's, if we look at what is common to everybody, instead of looking at what is different from one person to another, this is when we start seeing that how beautiful, fabulously built this skin is, and this organ does everything if we let it, right? And for me, the big shift was exactly that, to start looking at the basic functions of the skin, what it uses on a daily basis, what it produces on a daily
Hmm.
basis, what it needs for its microbiota that protects it to grow, like, and to glow, basically. And by feeling your skin, you're able to really adapt what you put on it very easily, and your skin thanks you every day.
Okay, wow. So before we go any deeper, actually, if you can explain, because we hear that word, the microbiome, so it's like one of those hype words lately. If you can explain what that exactly means, and because it's kind of it's I think it's gonna make the listeners understand exactly what you're referring to more about the skin.
Yes, absolutely. So it's been recently used as a buzzword a lot,
Yes.
and that's where the danger is. So most of us have heard about the gut microbiota, the gut microbiome. So we use these words interchangeably. The microbiome is really the science of, the microorganisms that live in our gut, microbiota. For the skin is the skin microbiota. So there's a lot of similarities. So I often explain with comparisons to the gut, so it's easier to understand. So in the gut, we can take probiotics. So probiotics are these microorganisms that we take that fill our gut with more microorganisms that help us, with the food that we eat and that actually provide a lot of benefit in terms of our immune system. On the skin, it's very similar. There's a lot of microorganisms that live on top and in our pores, on our scalp, overall, or, like on our body. Actually, it's said that we have more cells that are part of that microbiota that we have than we have human cells.
Wow.
We think about that, it means that, all that the activity that's going on our body, there's more microbes doing a lot more things than we have actually human cells in our body. It's like really a shift to understand that these guys are there for a reason. And depending on the location on our skin, the composition of the microorganisms will not be exactly the same. And on the face, and it's mostly where people have more concerns, there's a different layer of complexity because we produce oils, right? Sebum. And this sebum feeds some microorganisms, so it provides an environment for them to be hosted, right?
Mhm.
And then to live on our skin. And in return, they actually protect us from different conditions and even from our environment. They are the first layer. They're the protector of our protective organ, which is the skin, right? So in terms of longevity, they protect, these microorganisms are like a filter of UV light. It's not a sunscreen FPS 50, like it's very soft, but on a day-to-day inside, like with the free radicals and the blue light and everything, they do provide, like a filter. So again, prevent premature aging. They also protect against disbalances of other microorganisms because we know conditions like acne, rosacea, even dermatitis, atopic dermatitis, which is eczema,
Mhm.
they are caused by disbalances of these microorganisms. So by having a strong skin microbiota, we actually have a skin that's much more resilient to these changes and that can prevent flares of these conditions.
That
So
is
these are
so
the benefits.
interesting. Wow. I didn't even realize. I didn't even realize. I mean, when you think about the science behind it, I mean, what your skin is doing on a regular basis every day, we take it all for granted, right? At the moment that something goes wrong, that's when we realize, oh, it's not working. Something's wrong. So there's a lot of debate too about like morning cleansing, right? Some people say that we shouldn't wash our face first thing in the morning because the skin's microbiome does a lot like of important work overnight. And so, I mean, what do you, based on your research, what do you think? Is that just a myth, or should we be doing that, the nightly routine washing and first thing in the morning? Because that's what I always do. Like right in the shower, I have my cleanser and I just wash my face and I'm like, okay, now I'm actually awake. Right?
Okay, well, I actually propose the opposite, but not for the same reason that you mentioned.
Okay.
I agree completely that we don't need to wash in the morning, not because of the benefits that we may lose if we wash, but to protect actually the good, the essential elements. So I see the skin, and this is the shift I've taken, right? The skin, instead of seeing just the organ, as I see the chemical barriers, and I include the microorganisms on top, which is like kind of three barriers interconnected. The barrier of the salts, the water, what keeps the water, which is super important for the skin functions. The oils, what keeps the skin supple and glowy, And then the microbes, right? The microorganisms, which can be different types, right? And these guys, like we said, they protect us, and they
Hmm.
have like very specific functions that support us. But these three barriers are full of different ingredients that the skin produces as well. So if we wash it too much,
Okay.
we actually, wash the good stuff away. So the first thing you want to do is, yes, you want to remove the bad stuff, which will be whatever you've accumulated during the day because you went outside. We live in polluted
Yeah.
environments. We sweat. We put on makeup. Like we feel better with makeup on, but it's not great for our skin. It's ingredients that we need to take off. Sunscreen, the same thing. There's ingredients in there we don't want to stay on our skin. So at the end of the day, we kind of need to wash
Hmm.
away, those. We'll use a cleanser that's super neutral, pH 7, so that your molecules are not in the optimal conformation. So they're not going to be too much washed away. But the simple and the small molecules will go with that wash. So that's what I propose. Once a day, you cleanse and remove everything once. You don't need the double, triple,
Okay.
there's like routines of, like what you want to
Yes.
do is really get rid of what is not great for your skin, but protect what is. And then you reapply, you apply your product so to restore what you've
Hmm.
just taken away, right? So you restore the elements and you restore the pH because your skin functions optimally at a slightly acidic pH. And if you give it back, the environment to thrive, the microorganisms are, going to help and kick back, much more rapidly, and your chemistry as well. And then you go to bed, you sleep in the morning. You don't need to remove anything because you're not, like it's just better for everybody that you keep it there. I'm the same as you in the morning. I kind of need water to feel
Yeah.
awake. So I rinse and then I reapply just to get the pH. And, in case there's some elements like the natural moisturizing factors, those molecules that keep the
Hmm.
water in the skin, you want them because they're easy to lose and they're the one who keep really the water in your skin for those functions. So you'll reapply these ingredients and make sure that the pH is optimal for your skin. And then you can put on makeup and sunscreen, later on, so that yeah, your skin has been able to do its job in the meantime.
Start the day. Okay, that's
Yeah,
good to know.
yeah.
That's interesting. So you've spent years studying skin and you've said that most routines are more complicated than they need to be. And you have this your one human skin philosophy, which really disrupts the idea that we all need customized, multi-step routines. How do you bring it back to just one step when we're constantly told that we all have different skins, right? We have like the skin quizzes that you see everywhere online in magazines that you can, before you order your makeup, it's like, first take this quiz and see what your skin type is. So, how does that work based on your philosophy?
That's such an excellent question. So, yes, you take a quiz and then you're provided with this solution that's often multiple step. And I remember I would have a guide, and I would follow that guide because I would get lost. We're busy, we think about other things, and then we get to our mirror at the end of the day, we're tired. And
Yep.
then, if you try to follow, but sometimes you're like, oh, there's something that just doesn't make sense with our lifestyle. So I've decided, okay, I really want to take care of my skin optimally, but there's my daughter too, So I said at the beginning, to develop something that made sense for everyone. So I focused on, like I said, the functions of the skin and what every skin has in common. So I started like this. So the water elements, what keeps the water in the skin, like hyaluronic acid is a very good example that's of ingredient that does that. PCA is another. I mean, there's a few amino acids also that do that. Then there's the oils, those oils that kind of reproduce your sebum that you kind of wash away. When you wash, that's also a part that you clean. You don't want to stress your glands to produce more because you
Hmm.
will create disbalances, but you want to restore that. So these ingredients, like that respect the sebum, the oil, and then what feeds and provides the environment for the skin. So these are all ingredients that everybody's skin uses on a daily basis. But then, like we answer the quiz, and then how do you feel your skin in these conditions, and that, and that, and that. And then we're provided a solution that is not adaptable because the skin changes every day. And one factor we're never considered was the microbiota, but another is that a woman's skin's changes every week, every day, actually, if you factor in, her metabolism, what she ate, the stress level she's in, if she didn't sleep properly, it's all influenced. But the biggest influencer are your hormones. The stress influences your hormones, right? And all of that. So we answer quizzes, or we're provided with a formula that works wonders, but sometimes in the month, because the rest of the time, it's not adapted for those changes. Because your skin, depending in if you're in the middle of the month or right before your period, or even if you're menopaused, like your levels are lower, but the stress also still influences variations in your
Hmm.
skin, and we have no way of adapting to those changes. So this is when, like when I was trying to develop, and I put everything together, and I knew scientifically, okay, I have everything the skin uses. Why isn't it working? I was so conditioned by the industry and how we treat the skin. I couldn't adapt it. And it came, like once I looked at my daughter's struggles, and I was making sure, like at the same time, for myself, it would work too. The only way I could make it work is if I separated in a formula what was oily and what was salty, what kept the water in and what
Hmm.
kept the oils. But the two formula were strong in pre and postbiotics, so that no matter the proportion that you would use, you would still feed properly and care for your microorganisms. So it's a system that works together. And just by, and I always, well, I joke, in a way, I say there's a two-step system. The first step is to feel your skin, and it becomes very, very intuitive. Do I feel my skin oily? Do I feel my skin tight? And it also depends on external factors, right? Because sometimes our skin does need more oil
Hmm.
because we heat and we want to prevent evaporation. So, but it's all very intuitive. We have forgotten the way to listen.
Yes. Listen, I mean, weather I think has a huge factor. Like I feel myself the moment it's like winter time, then I really feel like I'm dry, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But you still need the same thing. It's just a proportion change. And to have a system that allows you to, adapt to these proportion is really the key. But it's just like at the basis to listen to it. Okay, is it more oils that I need, or is it more salt? It's
Hmm.
just as simple as that, right? It's just like, like an impression. And by having, the understanding as how your skin really evolves on a day to day, we don't ask the same thing from our care, right? What we ask is for it to be adaptable so that we can adjust our proportions to its exact needs on a daily basis. And by doing that, we stop stressing the skin, and then the skin actually responds super well. The inflammation goes down, and then we get to glow from within, honestly, because we have this approach that's super simplified. We stop worrying about what to add on. We don't need to add more. You just need to balance, and that's it.
And that makes sense. It's like a recipe for for your skin. It's like, do I need more salt? Do I need more pepper? But it's really, really knowing and understanding what your skin needs at that time. So what are we've gone through some of the items, but what are some other main things that affect our skin from day to day? I know like weather, stress, hormones. Can you give us, a list of some other factors to look out for?
Absolutely. Well, first, there's sleep.
Sleep.
There's nothing you can do without sleep. And the skin will tell you if you're lacking
Sleep
sleep.
affects everything. As I'm aging, I'm realizing that like, all the nights that I stayed up late in the past and my mom would be like, it's going to affect you in the long run. It's going to affect you in the long run. Now I understand.
Yeah, exactly. It does. So sleep goes a lot with stress, absolutely. And these are things we can control, right?
hmm
With time also we realize that breathing and meditation are excellent for the skin because they're excellent for our mindset and like you're the expert in that space, right? So
Right.
I would say also something that had always surprised me when I was younger because my dermatologist would tell me, no, 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 it doesn't matter what you eat. Eh, that's not true. It does matter. It does absolutely. So water, lots of, hydration, because you may hydrate your skin from outside with ingredients that are keeping the water in so that your function are optimal. But if you don't drink from inside, I mean, there's going to be a lack. It's going to show.
Right.
So it's the basic needs of longevity too, right? And they show up in your skin, and what you eat is whole food. Processed food is a big no-no, and the worst of all, I think, is refined sugar. It's sugar. They show up. I mean. Some people more than other, but like I know for my kids, if there's stress or there's refined sugar, it shows up straight away, right?
No,
So these are the
definitely.
big elements, I think. And movement affects everything. It moderates your hormonal system as well, and which affects a lot your skin. So
So everything is
it's everything.
connected, listeners. It's the sleep, the stress, the physical movement, having a positive mindset, meditating, hydration, good food. It's all connected to each other. But what do we do when we live? I mean, as you know, it's like in an industry full of marketing spins, right? I mean, I know you have built a reputation on, telling the truth and exposing the wasteful practices and empowering consumers to make smarter choices as we should. But realistically, let's be honest. I mean, when I first of all, I'm terrified to go to a Sephora store with my daughters because I know them, first of all, the crowds, but I know like if I need something, I prefer to like go by myself or order online because that when the moment I step in and my girls are with me, it's like, it's like you, and then you want to ask them one question, like about one thing. Next thing you know, you're walking out with 20 products and like over a $500 bill. So, how do we stop falling for those skin sales? Because we all want to, like, we want that easy fix and we want someone to be like, oh, the moment you put this on, your skin will be flawless and you're going to be like, you'll have, no breakouts or you're going to look like you're younger. Like, we're looking for those desperately, right? And we see it online. It's just like thrown to us constantly with the movie stars and what they're doing. So, how do we as women actually educate ourselves from buying things that actually work, and simple is always better than just buying things that's marketed and falling in for those traps. I know that was like a really fully loaded question.
It is because it's not one that's straightforward to
No.
to answer, unfortunately. I would say if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. Unfortunately, in terms of acne treatment, because this is really, like the age period where acne, I mean, there's adult acne as well. It
hmm
comes back. Also perimenopause. There's, like, but I think by that age, we've understood that there was, a lot of marketing behind it. And often, like we've found a solution that's perhaps not perfect, but that we can live with. And if we haven't, well, then we research more, right? And we become very, very educated. But younger, I think, like if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. And most of the companies that will go for one ingredient, and I get that question often, is this ingredient good? Is this ingredient good? Yes, it's good. But it's like asking if broccoli is good. Yeah, broccoli is good, but you're not going to live very, healthily if you just eat broccoli, right? It has to be really balanced. You need a full smoothie or a big, multivitamin shake if you're not going to take anything else, right? It needs to be really coherent.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, like I've developed this system with the kind of three barriers to try to simplify the types of ingredients. You need ingredients in the three buckets, and you need more than one. The reason being that if you want a complete profile of lipids for your skin, if you only use one type of lipid, you're not going to have a complete profile. So you're going to pick a few, right? If you have an oil that you really, really like, well, combine it with two or three others, like that will make it complete with a profile that's more diverse.
Right.
Because what the skin does is like anything in the body, there's a lot of nuances and complexities. So if you want to approach it simply by having multiple ingredients, like for instance, on your plate, if we could take the comparison with the food we eat, if you put one ingredient in your plate, you're not going to get the full profile of vitamins because it's just one. It's good, but it's limited. So if you have a lot of colors, or within your week, if you're, like the target, they suggest, like to try to eat 30 fruits and vegetables different in your week, like which can be achieved quite easily if you focus on it. Okay, I'll take this because I haven't had those in a while,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Right. Right.
you have a different minerals and nutrients that are taken in. Well, it's the same for these barriers. So in oils, you'll like in my formula, I have 4 different types of oils that I pick to reproduce the sebum, right? And obviously I pick those that are not comedogenic so that it can fit with everybody. Now, some women, particularly in extreme conditions, for instance, they go skiing in winter, you will need a stronger protection in terms of oils. Well, then
Right.
you can add up some butters that are more occlusive, but a teen would not put that on because that person, like the skin would break out because it's too oily, too occlusive a mix, right? So that's why you'll choose, like as a go-to, like oils that are easily absorbed and that I have a profile that are varied. In terms of the salts, is the same, right? And hyaluronic acid, I think, should be in all
Yes. Yeah.
formulations. PCA as well. It's amino acid derivative. But like if you have peptides or if you have extracts with proteins, you don't need the collagen, by the way, because it doesn't reach the layer that you really want it in. So put your money elsewhere. You can, like
Yeah,
invest
collagen
in.
is really being pushed and pushed and pushed. And it's like, do you put it in your coffee? Do you put it on your face? And then you hear all sorts of things that it's just collagen is within your body and it's going to produce what it's producing. And no matter what you do, it's not going to change things. I don't know anymore. I mean, it's so difficult.
It is actually, like, that this started for me, like the education aspect started 20 years ago when I finished my PhD. We moved to Mexico for work. And I had, like my kids, and I was always, looking out for the best ingredients for them. They were like pure babies, and like you want the best, and like you don't want to make the mistakes that perhaps you've made on yourself. And And I was researching everything, but in the literature, and my friends were asking questions, and okay, what can I do? What can, So I really started looking at the articles and the methodology, and this is how it emerged, right? So when I decided to develop something for my daughter, really, I mapped out everything. The no ingredients that I call, those ingredients that absolutely you want to
Right.
avoid. So that was quite easy because now we're informed, right? We don't know which products don't contain them. That's another question, but we know the ingredients. We can recognize them. Then I mapped the oh yes ingredients, those that I was sure I wanted in the formulation. And then there was everything in between, what I call the wasteful. They're not bad. Like collagen certainly is not bad. It's not a bad ingredient, but it doesn't serve the purpose that we use it for, right?
Hmm.
It's a protein, so it helps the skin because it's not bad, but it's not doing what we think it's going to do. The same for vitamin C. Vitamin C is an antioxidant, but it really doesn't help your collagen levels. Certainly not on the skin, right? If you eat it, if you put a lot, like you make sure you have vitamin C in your diet every day, of course you're going to support your collagen production.
Right.
But like these are two different things, and that's the issue. We're trying to understand what's going on, especially with the social media now that you can find any theory and the opposite prove, like
Oh,
they
definitely. That's the craziest thing about it. That's why it's so confusing. It's like,
yeah.
and then now there's this whole thing with like cholesterol. Like it's just like constantly like you should be having cholesterol. I'm like, I don't know anymore. I don't, it's too many different things. And I think that's just the key is really researching. Like I recommend for everyone to really research what they see online and research it by a proper source, like a chemist like yourself, like a dermatologist, like someone who's educated in the field, research it through them and don't just take anything that's given through online as a real thing to believe because that's what a lot of people are doing and that's a huge problem. It's great for the sales, but it's our job to educate ourselves. We are the only ones that can.
And it's even more complicated. I find we say this when the internet came about, like we had like it was the Far West. Now it's AI, right? AI takes
Oh,
its information online, right? I was building a course because I'm giving a course to naturopaths at a naturopathic course, just on the skin microbiome and how it works and the skin itself. And I tried, like to help myself, like and to speed things up with deep research on like on ChatGPT. And I couldn't use the material because it was saying things that are just not true. They're not even if you go into the deep research because it's looking at everything,
oh, that's
literature,
so true.
and if it's said and if it's repeated, like there's so many articles published on this type of uh, of ingredient or this type of skin or vitamin C, for instance, the
Like it
connection
can't
vitamins.
figure out what's real, what's true because there's so much. And that's a huge problem with AI because now people are really using it as like this is the encyclopedia of everything. Anything that we want to find out the truth, put it in chat. And that can get a little tricky. So I have no idea. I don't know what we can do. I don't know.
Well, that's why, like I try to simplify, like the system where I say, okay, recognize is this, like first of all, what your skin needs as the first, like ingredient is how you feel it. Does it need more water? Like, do you feel you need, like to give it a drink of water, or do you feel tight that it needs more oils? Like so that's the first thing. So you'll have like a basic, like most cream have oils in it. And if there is hyaluronic acid in it too, or PCA, you have salts too, like so you can start from there And then, like the prebiotics and the postbiotics that are super important, then you really have to go for a brand that's not just marketing ingredients to as a trend,
Right.
but that focus on the microbiota as a whole, right? And there are some companies that are solid. Evidently, it's more complicated for bigger companies because they've invested so much in the skin types and their profile, and they have a group of customers that are satisfied with their products, and if it works for
Right.
them, like smaller brands sometimes will work better this way.
Very true. Very true. Now, Dr. Mimi, what do you think with the myths of as far as treatment goes? Like we're supposed to get a facial every 4 weeks, or there's all these different, like I get overwhelmed, but you, and before it was just like, you had choices of two different facials. Now you are like, there's so much, there's the peeling and there's so many different things that you can do for your face. Then I feel like as a woman, in my, late 40s, I'm like, okay, am I falling behind? Should I be doing more? Well, everyone else is doing what? So what do you, I mean, again, are those, do all these treatments really work? Or do you know, based on your experience and your knowledge, is there one that's really beneficial and the rest are just kind of gimmicks? Or are we just doing too much? Like obsessing about it. And, like we said, sometimes less is more.
I think definitely for intervention, less is more, that's for sure. Then it's a question of how you feel and how confident, right? If it makes you feel good, because a facial is also a moment for yourself, right?
Right.
So, it's kind of getting a facial and a massage for your face. It could be great, right? That being said, before I had the formulation, I was going every season and I had still had skin issues and, it wasn't as bad as when I was a teenager, but it was still there. So I would care and I would go and I would have these recipes and I haven't been in years since I've developed the care because I've given back the power to my skin because it does do what it needs to do, which is everything. It exfoliates itself. So you don't need to trigger the cell turnover because I don't use irritants anymore. It's always a cycle when you use external ingredients or treatment, your skin will react to it. And
Hmm.
then when it comes back to its normal, then you feel you need to do it again.
Again.
But if you stop that cycle and you let your skin do it, then sometimes I feel my skin, oh, it's lacking a bit of glow, right? I know I'm about to exfoliate. It's about to do its thing. And then the next day, or it's become very much smarter because I let it do it. That being said, there are, especially with the light treatments, there are proven benefits, but these benefits are short term. So, and there's one thing that I would like to highlight, and because you've asked that question, I've seen a lot of women later on in life, in their 50s and 60s, that have had multiple treatment, Fraxel, for instance. That is something that it's pretty harsh, right? I don't know if you know the process. You get it's some sort of peeling with some it's a process and you have a downtime because you cannot show yourself after for a few weeks, right? Because
Right.
you have
And
like you
some of them
still
are kind of painful, right?
exactly,
Yes.
like and these women were telling me, and then my skin would glow. It was incredible. The effects short term are fabulous. But then 10 years later, 20 years later, their skin is super thin, hypersensitized. They cannot tolerate anything. And
Oh,
so then again, it goes back to the studies. The studies show results short term. So we have to really go back to what's the basic? how does our body work? We now have a pool of information in regards to longevity. We know, like the populations that live better, longer,
Hmm.
are those that have a diet that's very simple, that move, that sleep, that, like, and
Yep.
we go back to the basics. So unfortunately, I'm sure I didn't answer fully your question, but yeah, it's a
No.
question of yeah, listening to your skin. If there's
Yeah.
one thing, like feel it and
Exactly.
it
I think listening, and I do agree with you. I feel like a lot of these things are going to be short-term results, and people get excited, and that kind of provokes them to keep going and going and going, and the cycle continues. But down the line, and I would think if you're like peeling a lot of layers of your skin over and over on a regular basis, I would assume, like you're saying, that the skin is going to become a lot more sensitive and not durable. So it completely makes sense what you're talking about. And that's just good things to think about when we're making those appointments to really make sure like we've researched and we know this is what we want to do and we're listening to our skin. So one last question for you. So on a daily basis, I mean, I think we've touched on a lot of it, but what can we actually do that truly benefits our skin? Or maybe just, tell us like your real practice. Like what is your real practice on a daily basis? Like let's say at nighttime, what is your nightly routine?
well, it's exactly what I just told you. I developed for myself, my friends and my family. Like we sell this product right now. It's a duo that has actually 35 ingredients. It's a
Okay.
lot of ingredients, but it's all ingredients that the skin uses. And so at night, I get in front of the mirror, I cleanse, like with water, I rinse off with water, I pat dry, and I just apply, like the duo. I mix it in my hand. So I feel my
So
skin. I
no,
know,
like no toner, no, none of that. It's just you wash with water and not even like a cleanser.
At night, I will,
Okay.
especially if I have put makeup on, I will, of course. If I don't have access to anything, water is better than a very harsh cleanser or soap or detergent. Like
What about, because I have those things too, those electronic, cleansers that you charge and then you put your cleanser on and it's supposed to really clean your skin. Are those not good? Because I use those like every night.
but the thing is, I think there might be a bit irritating, but it depends how you use it, right? Because the cleansing, it's to remove the molecule on top. It's not going to go into the pores, and
Mhm.
that's fine because you have your sebum that's kind of cleansing it all. And then, like it's a living organ. So there's always things that are moving. What you want is removing these foreign molecules like those of sunscreen and makeup and pollution and so by using this electronic mechanism, you may be irritating your skin a bit, right? Because it does part of the exfoliation at the same time. So that's
Mhm.
why sometimes people do a few cycles of cleansing because they want to kind of exfoliate at the same time. And exfoliation is a stress on the skin because you kind of took part of its role and you did more than probably the skin would have done. So it
Okay.
kind of,
Like an
confuses the
overkill.
cycle.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so in the evening I just cleanse and then, like usually for myself it's going to be about 1 to 1, the proportion of serum, which is a liquid serum, like very water-based. There's no oils in it. It's just salts and minerals and peptides. And then I have my cream, which has like different oils. It had ceramides and a mixture of this very similar that you would have in your skin. And then like I mix in my hands. And when it's winter or when I feel my skin tighter in like in the month, I will put a bit more cream. And when I feel it very oily or dull, I will put more serum. But it becomes very intuitive because you feel it
You
before,
feel it.
it becomes, yeah, very natural.
Yeah.
And even if you forgot a bit, well, you can just add a bit more after,
Right.
like it's not pure science, but and then that's it. That's it. I take my time because I do believe that like a massage, very
Hmm.
light, not, like will stimulate circulation. So that just can help. and that's it. It literally takes me a minute.
That's wonderful. I think realistically, we just all really need to be, like you've said, intuitive and listen and be aware of our skin and our environment. Today has really reminded us of something we often forget. Sometimes simple really is better. In a world overflowing with trends and filters and sales tactics, it's easy for us to all lose ourselves in the noise. But our skin, as we've said, the largest organ we have, deserves more than marketing. It deserves understanding, respect, and truth. And Dr. Mimi has given us precisely that today. She's a scientist who makes the complex world of the microbiome feel human and accessible, as an entrepreneur who isn't afraid to challenge the beauty industry's most sacred rituals. Her clarity cuts through confusion, and she is reshaping the way we really think about science. And your mission to really demystify the beauty world and offer science-backed truth is something all of us can really appreciate and respect. And this is something that this industry desperately needs more of. As we walk away from this conversation, let's just remember this is really important, that beauty isn't found in a 12-step routine or a bottle on a shelf. It really begins with real internal health. It begins with knowing yourself, trusting your body, and honoring the skin that holds you all together. So before we end this show, is there anything, any message or piece of guidance that you would like to share with us to leave our listeners with, Dr. Mimi?
Well, first of all, thank you, Pearl. I think it's been very engaging. I think your audience is in good hands because you really feel, like skin to soul, like what it means.
Thank you.
I think, like trusting yourself and feeling your skin, learning to listen to your skin, and it's much easier than we think, and it's really rewarding and surprising how much something as simple as just feeling how it feels can, after a while, give us a lot more indication than what it needs, but also what our whole body needs.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And if you like more information about Dr. Mimi's products and to see what she's doing, all the links will be in my show notes. Thank you again for being on Female Fluence.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for spending this time with me here on Female Fluence, where we rise, reflect, and remember who we are. If something from today's episode spoke to you, share it with another woman who's ready to rise too. And before you go, download your free empowerment coaching guide at femalefluence.com. It's your next step toward living with more clarity and confidence. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at pearlmashure_femalefluence. And if you're ready for deeper support, sign up for a free discovery call. I would love to connect with you. Remember, my friends, don't just exist. Live your life fully, bravely, and in truth. I'm Pearl Mashure, and until next time, stay true, stay powerful, and stay you.